Good, is that on? The blue light on?
Yes.
Blue light's
Okay.
on.
Good morning, this is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals Public Review Session for January 21st, 2016. We'll begin with the special order calendar. Decision items, item number 1, 10 and 11-11BZ, 115 and 121 Findlay Avenue, Staten Island.
Okay, the drawings, as we requested, were revised to show the required planting pursuant to section 6461 of the zoning resolution. So I think they responded to all of our comments.
Yes.
Continued hearing items, item number 2, 52864BZ, 24002 Northern Boulevard, Queens.
They asked to adjourn this.
Item number 3, 17392BZ, 220 East 86th Street, Manhattan.
Okay, they submitted submitted a letter stating that the Department of Buildings and the Fire Department won't sign off on the installation of the sprinklers and fire alarm without our approval. I actually would like more information on what has been done to date because the letter wasn't very clear. I understand, I believe the alarm has not been installed. The fact is that the Department of Buildings and Fire Department, with conversation from us, will review applications for fire alarms and sprinklers prior to our approval where it has to do with legalizations. If they're having trouble with this, then we can make a phone call to the Department of Buildings and Fire Department and get them to review it. What they do is they have you submit the application as if it's a conforming use, and they review the application as a conforming use, not as the proposed use, and they approve on that basis. Any other comment?
Item number 4, 182 and 18395BZ, 2465 and 2473 Broadway, Manhattan.
They requested we take this off the calendar.
Item number 5, 12997BZ, 150-65 Cross Island Parkway, Queens.
Requested adjournment on this.
New cases, item number 6, 38280BZ, 316, 318 East 91st Street, Manhattan.
Okay, I just had a couple of questions on this. I'd like them to clarify what the current ground floor use is. The plans show it is a church. So then, according to that, the non-conforming use has been abandoned. I just want to verify that that's the case. Is it also correct that the theater at the mezzanine and second floor shares the space with the church? It was just that the statement was not very clearly written, so I was kind of wandering around trying to figure out what was going on. The certificate of occupancy doesn't reflect church use at all, so how long has this been going on? Is the C of O going to be amended? You need to also provide proof that the sprinklers and fire alarm systems are in working order. And I'd also like to know, though it may be a pre-existing use, pre-local law 58 and so on, but how does the theater deal with access for the disabled? Do they carry wheelchairs up? Is there a stair lift? What? Anybody else?
That was
Yeah.
my question.
This is true. Also, it appears that they have an additional toilet on the first floor that was not there previously, and they say they haven't done any work, but there's that additional toilet just sort of hanging out there. So if they could explain if there's been any other work done that they need to tell us about. And yeah, show the egress from the first floor. It may not be sufficient for the occupant load.
And did they submit a signage analysis sheet? Because I didn't
No.
see anything on the signage.
Anything else?
I think those were.
Item number 7, 125580BZ, 3533 31st Street, Queens.
Okay, a note with this one, the community board approved, but it was kind of a mixed approval. There were some who voted against it. The community board also had a list of conditions. A lot of them in in concert with what the previous conditions had been at this board. I wanted to note that there are violations for work without a permit. I wonder whether that work will be removed to enable development of the restaurant. So in other words, are the violations rendered irrelevant because of the use change? What is the status of this restaurant business since the letter was updated in December, I'm sorry. Is the owner's rep certain that the restaurant is still the proposed use? I ask that because unfortunately there's a long delay between the applications being filed and them coming to hearing, and the real estate world is much different than the board world, in that real estate deals fall apart. And so I want to make sure that the lawyer for the applicant has checked with the applicant that this restaurant operator is still a tenant, a proposed tenant. I'd like to know what the fire department thinks about whether a fire alarm and sprinkler system should be installed for this use. Normally, they do ask for sprinklering throughout, and that's not the condition here. I note the parking calculations are probably incorrect. The proposal is a use group 6 eating and drinking establishment, which is parking category B. It has a required minimum in a C12 of 1 space per 300 square feet, which is 18 spaces, not 29. You don't review it under the public assembly regulations. You look at it under use group 6. However, only 15 spaces are being provided, so we should talk about that a little bit more, whether it's possible to get in the balance of those 3. But I think for me, there's even a bigger fundamental question, which probably others have found. I'm not really understanding the scope of the waiver. Why aren't the adjoining vacant lots also the subject of this variance? They provide the required parking for this site. There's no C of O for those other sites. There's no evidence of a grandfathered use. The 2003 approved drawings show that the site was occupied by a 2-story frame dwelling. So how do you get commercial use, accessory commercial use on those 2 vacant lots unless it's part of this variance application? And then I think it makes it a much more difficult application because now it's a large lot where you can do more as of right things. It was stated that one interested renter was a community facility. I'm questioning why that isn't a viable use. The statement actually said that a church came and was interested in the site, but then it was going to take too long to get an approval. That doesn't make sense because it's an as-of-right use. You would have just abandoned the variance and you would have been done. And also, as a condition to the prior approvals, the applicant is required at each renewal to demonstrate that residential use is not viable at this site. Since the R5 allows multiple dwellings, I'm wondering why in the viability check, only attached 2 families were the proposed alternative. Also, if lots 8 and 9 are in common ownership, isn't it now 1 zoning lot, and doesn't that change the viability since it's a larger site? And then I looked up the deed history on those sites. A 2001 deed shows all 3 were sold together. Arguably, these lots have been in common ownership since 1979. There just seems to be it's the same family name, but it seems like one's the mom and one's the dad or something like that. The feasibility analysis is from November of 2014 based on sales in 2012, so that doesn't reflect current conditions. And just the last point, the as-of-right zoning calculations were also not done for the 50 by 80 zoning lot, even though I think it needs to be done for the entirety. It was only done for each individual house, so that's not correct. And
not only the parking issue on lots 8 and 9, but also it appears that the building's second means of egress empties out into lots 8
Right.
and 9, which would then necessitate some restrictive covenant of some kind, and although they mention that there's an easement agreement, they don't tell us or show it to us in its entirety. So I just have questions of, same as you do, about whether or not 8 and 9 both need to be included in this application, and if that's the case, it really changes the face of what they're asking for.
I agree with you. I think 8 and 9 should be included, and then the financials should be redone to consider a multiple dwelling, because you've got a lot of space if you include all of the lots, and it really does change the game completely. So I'm not even sure if you do that, if you would warrant having any kind of a variance. So, I mean, whereas one could see that if it were like 1 or 2 two-family homes, you know, next to a manufacturing building, they might be able to, if it was that single lot, make the argument, although it is an R5 and they could have greater density.
Right.
They definitely need to revamp the financials. And as for the parking, I don't see why there would be any reason why they wouldn't be able to meet the parking requirement with stackers, since it's valet parking.
Right.
Yeah, and they also, if they get past an A finding, if they redo it, should consider screening appropriately the landscape, the parking lot, so that it at least does not negatively affect the adjacent home.
Other comments?
I think they should just show that it's been continuous use also. I mean, the manufacturing use supposedly ended in 2004,
Right.
but that it's been used for storage or something, you know, non-conforming since that time, and that it hasn't been discontinued for 2 years.
Right.
I think my primary question was about the lots 9 and 8 and the use of it as a parking lot, and why it's not being considered with the subject lots and being analyzed. So those were my primary concerns.
I noticed there was kind of a strange restriction on the use that said they could fabricate steel, but they can't manufacture it. And I don't know what the difference is.
I guess, you know, having like furnaces or something. I don't know.
But fabricating, what?
It's like you take steel and change the form.
That's fabricating. As a manufacturing, they're smolting it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Move on.
Okay.
Appeals calendar, decision items, item number 8, 114 through 125-15A. This is J Court, Staten Island. We're going to defer.
Yeah, now we're going to defer on this. We're deferring because of the issue of the restrictive deck for the alternate side parking, or the fire department's concern about parking on both sides of the street, and that we want to have a restrictive deck that's drafted in draft form that we're going to include with the approvals. And we don't necessarily have to defer if they can get the drawings to us.
No,
They
when
can't.
Todd, he said a week.
Okay.
Let's see, no. Okay. Item number 9, 136-15A, 521 Durant Avenue, Staten Island.
Okay, in this case, initially the fire department had wanted a restrictive deck on this also, but then there was discussion about the separate ownership of each of these, and there isn't a homeowner association, and the previous 2 homes were approved separately, so there's no longer fire department requiring a restrictive deck, so.
And we don't need the city planning votes. They were supposed to have gotten them between the last hearing and now.
No, yes.
I think we
They got them?
got them.
All right,
yeah.
I didn't see that.
We have, they weren't in our
Oh.
folder, I don't believe. The decision was set for the 16th of December.
I spoke to
Right.
him about it, all right, I'll ask him just fax me anything he has.
Mhm.
Give that to me, so you can get that.
Yeah, we can distribute that to the board.
It's just a second.
Condition.
Hmm?
Resolution, something.
This one's,
Do you want to condition something in the resolution?
yeah, we could do that, but instead, we could make a phone call if they already have the
Yeah, it's easy
approval.
enough to.
Continued hearing items, item number 10, 18206A to 1106A, Beach Fifth Street, Queens.
Okay.
You see community board, and then we had the applicant respond to
Yeah,
the community board.
the community board opposes. The applicant, we asked the applicant to respond to community board concern that there was construction going on without permits, but in particular going on a Saturday. And they responded, am I in the right one? Yeah. They responded that they had permits and they showed us the after-hours permits, but they didn't respond to the fact that the work was being done on a Saturday in a primarily Orthodox Jewish community. We didn't hear any response to that. So better relations with the neighbors is always a good thing for a development. We don't regulate that, but still. They also provided photos showing various stages of completion of the footings and foundations. And in two of the photos of ground floor garage level concrete blocking enclosures, the original application stated that roofing and framing was complete on 6 buildings. However, these were subsequently removed to comply with the flood regulations. So, and based on the various vantage points shown on the site plan, it doesn't look like any of the homes has exceeded the ground floor level in completion, and most seem to be still at grade. Just to note, the key to the photos on the site plan were not legible, at least when I was looking, but I was kind of trying to figure it out. So I have a question. Given the degree of demolition, bringing most of it back down to grade, I'm not sure I understand what the scope of the serious loss is anymore, because at one point everything was much more developed. The existing structures were leveled to allow for elevation of the first floor and parking below. If I understand the sequencing events, whatever work that did take place was performed until 2007, at which point there was no additional work. Then last year, much of that work was removed. So the percentages of the total projected development costs shown in the statement of facts seem now inflated, since a lot of the work in place was later removed. I don't know if it's legitimate to include those costs in the serious loss. You know, we built, and then we had to remove to comply with flood regulations. Should you be allowed to include the costs of that initial building and the removal when it was a mistake or a corrective action, or?
Well, I don't know if it was a mistake or a corrective action, because at the time that it was expended, it was a legally compliant development. So then, maybe it wouldn't be serious loss in terms of money lost due to a rezoning, but it was legitimately spent at the time. So
Okay, so but that's sort of the question. Aren't you looking at the sort of the work in the ground, and that removal of the work that's in the ground to comply with current zoning would be so costly that you couldn't do it, that you couldn't afford to do it.
Right, but I think if I read it correctly, to me the primary loss here is the piles, isn't it? Or am I looking at the wrong? And so that the problem with that is that all of those piles would have to be pulled out and redone in a new formation. So I think that is what meets the threshold of the serious loss.
But were you satisfied that the cost of the piles was clearly articulated in the submission? That just the pile cost, as opposed to work that was subsequently
done on those 6 structures.
Yeah, on 6 structures, and there was more on the other structures too. Only 6 of them got to framing and a roof, but the other structures had gotten up to some level, right? And so all of that was leveled. So then the only cost should be...
Were the footings and the foundations that were completed for the 14 buildings leveled?
So.
No,
No,
only
no.
the 6.
So
So
only
all the
those 6.
piles remain, and the footings and foundations for the 14
When you look at the
buildings
photographs,
remain.
you don't see any columns at all. You just see a flat terrain, and in some cases, you see the foundation line just reaching a tiny bit above grade, right? And in other cases, you don't see anything. You see soil disturbance.
Right, so there should be footings and foundation walls still in place for the 14 buildings that had them. And it should be the piles, I guess more than half, like 2/3 of the piles should still be in place. And the only thing that was removed is the roofing and the framing for the 6 buildings. So it would seem to me that you would see, especially if they did some backfilling, you would see an almost more or less level site.
Okay.
So I would think that that definitely meets the threshold of work done.
Okay. But you're comfortable with how it was presented to you?
I am.
Yeah, okay.
I am.
Let me see if there's other stuff.
I just wanted to add that, similar to Finley, they're going to have to comply with the 64-61 regulations regarding mitigation measures. So that could be a condition of the grant.
Okay, 64, 61 regulations, replanting and landscaping, right?
It's the, it can be other things. There's
Okay.
there's a
There's
variety
an
of, a
option.
menu of
Mitigation.
mitigation
Okay.
measures. It includes planting and all
Right.
sorts of other stuff.
Okay. So that's a condition.
Move on.
Yeah.
Item number 11, 300-08A, 3935 27th Street, Queens. We received a submission yesterday.
Yes. So, in mid-December, just to kind of back up, we were told that DOB was not allowing the property owner to submit the site safety plan, or let's say, was not willing to review the site safety plan, and then therefore not let them do the work. And so we intervened and spoke to DOB commissioner, and since then, the site safety plan has been approved, actually, as yesterday or the day before, by the Best Squad, which will, and now they'll be able to pull a permit and begin the work to stabilize the site, protect the site. And then the next sequence of events will be the stabilization and repair of the adjoining properties. So more to follow. The saga goes on 27th Street. Okay.
New cases, item number 12, 22015A, 3858-60 Victory Boulevard, Staten Island.
Okay, I didn't really have comments on this. I just note that the fire department sign-off didn't mention the need for sprinklers, which I thought it might, but it didn't. And I didn't have any other comments. Anybody else?
No issues.
Item number 13, 2016-4A through 2016, 1084A. Various sites in Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island. This is Build It Back projects.
Right, so various 1,181 sites for GCL 36 waivers, all of which are needed so that construction can begin and permits be issued. So, and the submission is really just a list of all the sites that need it, and then we leave it to the architects and the fire department and so on to ensure that everything is complying with code. But fire department is going to require that all of those buildings be sprinklered, have smoke and carbon monoxide alarms, and that the foundation, underneath the foundation where the building is lifted, has a 2-hour fire resistance rating on the underside, and that the height from grade to the highest windowsill doesn't exceed 32 feet in order to qualify for this. And except to say that sprinklers may be waived in certain circumstances, but they'll have to go to the fire department and request that. Okay, anybody, comments, questions?
Zoning calendar, decision items, item number 14, 193, 13B, 4770 White Plains Road, the Bronx.
Okay. The plans have been modified as requested, and I thought were extremely clear. They were really a pleasure, that set of plans to review. The fencing and wall finish materials were specified as requested, and the queuing spaces labeled. I didn't have anybody else?
Nope.
Item number 15, 3114 BZ, 165 Spencer Street, Brooklyn.
We have to defer decision on this pending an air quality assessment that we've been waiting for some time.
Item number 16, 9814 BZ, 404 Richmond Terrace, Staten Island.
They provided revised plans showing the sound attenuation fencing around the HVAC systems and decorative fencing. Oops, sorry, that's the wrong one. Sorry. The plans were amended as requested. And the sound attenuation barrier around the AC units will be concealed by planting of equivalent height. The Landmarks Commission still has to approve the barrier height and color, which will be a condition to permit. I would like to see a condition because the site has been badly sort of managed in terms of construction site, so I'd like to see a condition on site that the site's maintained free of debris and graffiti during construction, and that there's construction fencing installed to protect the neighbors from noise and nuisance. Anybody else? No? Okay.
Item number 17, 28314BZ, 3235 Bedford Avenue, Brooklyn.
The applicant modified the plans to allow more space between the house and garage, but by doing that, it renders the garage so small that it's no longer a garage, now it's a shed. So that adds 288 square feet of floor area, which increases the requested FAR from 0.8 to 0.89.
I don't think, personally, I don't ever recall counting a shed as floor area in the rear yard.
But an accessory building is floor area.
But doesn't that then change the waiver in terms of the size of the rear yard?
No, because an accessory building is a permitted obstruction.
Obstruction, so.
Yeah, and I agree that sheds to a certain size shouldn't be floor area, but it's not what it says in the zoning resolution. I'm wondering if they ever changed that, because I sort of remember like garden sheds being permitted. Yeah, but
Permitted
I
obstruction.
think this
permitted
has been
floor.
left to buildings to determine whether or not a shed is floor area. It's something
Buildings
that-
get to do that. It says accessory.
If it, yeah, I mean, I've had many conversations about this.
Really?
Yeah, about whether it's a shed and whether it counts as permitted obstruction versus it's counted as floor area. It's
Well, I suppose
probably
if it
something
was
you've been
one of
encountered
those-
before too.
If it's like a Home Depot prefabricated thing
Yeah.
that you drop with no foundation,
Right.
that shouldn't be.
Right, and
That's
and they haven't
furnishings.
really, if they're counting it as floor area, perhaps they're intending to use it as sort of swing space to use, not live in, but to use
Right.
for,
No, but it's a garage with a
Residential
foundation,
use.
and
Which
you're just
requires
reducing it.
permits and
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
Foundation, yeah, the
Right.
garage requires a permit.
Right.
So they're counting it as.
so this
Alright.
is just cutting back the front.
But
Yeah.
he didn't change his statement to agree with his zoning analysis.
Oh, I thought he did. Oh. Okay.
But we should make sure that the notes on the drawings indicate that this is
Right.
per DOB approval.
The
Yeah,
shed, I
yeah.
believe, says
Yeah,
for DOB
yeah,
approval. And, yeah, and so we could just check quickly that the data matches, because when the council writes the resolution, the data should match between the statement of facts and what's in the
Yes.
drawings, otherwise. So if the applicant could just do that, quickly check what it says in the statement of facts, which is only 2 pages long, I think, that the numbers match, and even a hand correction and faxing it would be, or not faxing it, and emailing it to submit, sorry. I'm just working with the technology available. Okay. And they also provided the requested modifications to the other materials with respect to the floor area and the yards. We wanted more information on the drawings, and they're there. Okay, anything else?
Continued hearing items, item number 18, 4114BZ, 21-37 Waverly Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay, they requested an adjournment to February 23rd. They haven't submitted really anything, but just a note that the fire alarm and sprinkler system installation has to be done. And the excuses that we're getting, that the school can't because it doesn't work, there's like no actual work time. School's in session from what is it, from from Sunday to Friday, and then no one works on Saturday, and therefore there's no time that you can do the work. Well, not acceptable. Work has to be done, even if it means shutting down areas of the school, hiring people who work from after-school hours all night. It's done in other places, and the MTA works on subways that run 24 hours a day, and they get repaired. So we have been looking at this for over a year. And not having sprinklers and fire alarms in a school is unacceptable. So progress has to be made. Okay.
Item number 19, 10114 BZ, 1975 51st Street, Brooklyn.
We wanted to adjourn this.
Item number 20, 22914 BZ, 55-05 Myrtle Avenue, Queens.
Also to adjourn this.
Item number 21, 26914 BZ, 89-44 Metropolitan Avenue, Queens.
And to adjourn this. I don't know what it was about today.
Item number 22, 31814 BZ, 1672, 1680 86th Street, Brooklyn.
Okay. Okay, there were two submissions on this. December 17th submission, the improvements were made to the site, and the photo shows striping, landscaping along the perimeter, replacement of the fence, removal of clothing bins, relocation of the dumpster to the parking area, and the signage was revised. Lighting was added to the plans. I'm not really understanding the lumen spread diagram, though. I'm just wondering if that's the only lighting on the site. I see that the type of lighting, I think, is what's shown in the photographs. It's just these two very simple down floods, but according to the lumen spread diagram, there's only 5 lumens of initial output. That's like hardly, it's like not even as much as your flashlight. So I'm not really sure what that is or if it's accurate. And just for future use, because I don't want to make a big thing of it, the drawing should have been labeled with keys to identify the symbols. They also offered to revise the hours of the repair hours to exclude Sunday, which seems reasonable to do. We talked a lot about how they were going to be sealing up those openings along the side of the building, and how there was going to be a proposal to seal them in some really aesthetically appropriate way, and instead they blocked them up, they stuccoed them, they painted it, which was not at all what we discussed. I don't know how others feel about that. Also, the photograph shows that there's this roll-up gate on that same wall that's decayed, and really decayed. It's like, almost looks like a Chamberlain sculpture, and it should be removed or replaced. The striping shows parking for 11 cars, but the photo that was provided to us shows 2 trucks parked parallel to the wall. I'm wondering what the purpose of the striping is and what the intended purpose of the parking area is. Because, you take a photo to show us and it reveals other things. I never really understand that, It's like theater. You should at least prep the theater. Okay. The interior of the block wall around the parking area is unfinished and unsightly, but at least it's hidden by a fenced enclosure. Close-up photos also show the brickwork that wasn't painted is in need of repair and pointing, and if you don't take care of it, it's going to decay. They did provide a fire department letter to establish the continuous use. And with respect to the location of the district boundary line, I just wanted to correct the analysis for future use. All you have to do is, you don't have to take the map, blow it up so it's to scale, measure it, and so on. That's actually not how you determine where the district boundary line is. You simply turn to section 76-131 in the zoning resolution, and it tells you that in a C12 district, the boundary line located parallel to the short dimension of the block is 150 feet from the nearest street. Luckily, the map was drawn to scale, but often it's not. So scaling it is, isn't safe. And, okay, so, any other comments on this one?
I had asked them to reinstall the street tree, and I didn't mean I didn't mean 86th Street. There's an existing tree pit on Bay 14th Street, which I think is, very easy to reinstall the street tree,
Okay,
and would
so,
prevent people from parking on the sidewalk.
so what is it, it's Bay
14th Street,
14?
there's already a pit there.
Okay, so what we could do is add that to a condition unless we have other outstanding things that we want them to take care of on
think-
site.
One of the condition also should be no parking on the sidewalk based on the site visits. I did notice a
Yeah,
number of vehicles
again,
parked on the
okay.
sidewalk.
So, the list of conditions, so they know in advance, is that the site has to be maintained graffiti-free, fences in good repair, lighting directed away from the neighbors, the brickwork has to be repointed, the stucco and the interior of the block wall around the parking area has to be stuccoed and painted, the striping has to be maintained, signage comply with C12 regs, and as we said, no parking on the sidewalk, install street trees.
And maintain the landscaping.
And maintain.
And maintain the street tree.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Zoning calendar, new cases, item number 1, 2414 DZ, 106-02 Sutter Avenue, Queens. Oops.
Okay. Again, this is a zoning citation correction. The side yard citation is incorrect. Section 23461A states that for a corner lot, one side yard has to be 20 feet and the other a minimum of 5. However, the proposed complies by having a 30-foot side yard. The front yard citation also needs to be corrected. Section 2345A footnote double asterisk states that for corner lots in R4 where the front yard depth is greater than 10 feet, and in this case it's 13 feet, then the depth, it has to be 18 feet and the other has to be 10. That makes the conforming condition even more untenable than what was submitted because there's a required 18-foot front yard, not a 15-foot or 10-foot front yard. The floor area request is for an additional 119 square feet. That doesn't sound like much, but I'm not really sure that there's an argument for the additional floor area in this variance request because when they built the second floor, they already pulled the building back from the front and the rear. So they could have easily pulled it back a little bit more to be in compliance with the floor area. So my first question is, there are no mechanical deductions that have been taken. There is a maximum of 80 square feet for mechanical deductions for a two-family and an R4, so that doesn't quite get you there. But, and I don't know whether there's 80 square feet of mechanical in the building. But that should be looked up at, the pencil should be sharpened to make sure that this is really correct.
They also are eligible for an attic bonus, and just removing some of the attic floor would place some of the floor area directly below the attic, below the roof, which would give them enough bonus for the square footage, so there wouldn't be a waiver.
Okay, so,
It probably wouldn't even be an awful lot. Just like an open area.
okay, so that would be the best. Otherwise, if that's not working, then I'm thinking maybe you couple this with a 73-621 special permit that allows a 10% increase in floor area. That way we don't have to go to the variance question in this case. I'd like, in terms of the drawings, to show the parking spots on the site plan. I see where the garage is, but it says it's a one-car garage, so I don't understand where the other car parks. The application materials also seem to be going for a detrimental reliance argument. Since the second floor was claimed to have been added pursuant to valid permits that were later revoked. That argument in the first place does not apply here, particularly because the 2003 job was self-certified. That's different than the case that was cited, the 2011 case that was cited, where actually there had been higher ups had decided, had approved. However, this is clearly an undersized lot that cannot be practically developed without a waiver because of all the constraints on front and side yards. And happily, the second floor addition, with the exception of that 119 square feet, did not increase the degree of non-compliance of the first floor. It's a little bit hard to tell whether the front porch area at the first floor was subsequently added, in part because, and I should say that the applicant should now, instead of relying on detrimental reliance argument, which is really the wrong way to go, there's a lot of other cases that they can cite to for these exact type of sites that are 25 by 100 corner lots where it's impossible to add or to build on them or to add another floor on them because the size of the site ends up, the size of the addition or building is 10 feet wide and doesn't work. The part of the confusion about that front is that the Sanborn maps and the site plan show the original bungalows lining up on Sutter Street, but the survey shows the building pushed back further from Sutter than the neighbors, and the photographs seem to agree with the survey, which you would think would happen, otherwise I'm really confused about the survey. So relying on the survey, not on the drawings, and then I'm confused about the drawings not relying on the survey. That's what the survey's for.
Did they give us a set of the architecturals that they got approved at DOB?
I don't think so, no.
It might be helpful to actually see what was put into the building department.
Okay. And then, just one last thing. I thought that the uniqueness, floor area, and character studies were very complete, extremely good, and detailed, which made a really good argument that this corner lot condition is rare or burdened in a way that's similar to other lots of similar form and location, and that the proposal comports with neighborhood character. So we just need to get over some of these bumpy areas. Anyone else?
I have a couple of questions with regards to the findings. In the findings, it states that an alternative that was done, which is a 5-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 3-bath option, will be inhabitable, and I was not sure on what ground that statement is being made. I would like some clarification on that. Then also further in the document, it's, I quote, it says, therefore this has resulted in the site remaining underdeveloped for many years. And whereas the Sanborn map and all the written documents indicates that the site has been used and has been enlarged. So I think we just need either clarification or that just needs to be corrected. It might have been just a cut and paste error.
Just sort of
So,
take that out. Yeah.
you just need to be precise on those.
I think what's happening in the way that the argument's being made is sort of the applicant's been exposed to lots of different arguments that have been made for variances at the board,
Cherry-picking.
and somehow trying to make them relate to this application, which they don't. So that's why the easiest way would be to pull a copy of a successful application for one of those corner lots that has exactly the same situation and just use that as the model, because detrimental reliance isn't relevant here. It wouldn't have worked even if you tried. And as you say, you don't really need to talk about the site being underdeveloped. The fact is, it's reasonable to expand a one-story bungalow, and you can't do it on a site that only allows a 10-foot wide structure.
I agree with you. They definitely need to get rid of the detrimental reliance because it is self-certified. And I also agree that it would be very easy to make the case that complying enlargement is not marketable, basically, especially with the change in the required front yard to 18 feet, because once you set that wall back further, you basically lose a bedroom. So now
Right.
you're at a very narrow one-bedroom, staircase, teeny bathroom situation, and it really isn't
Right.
worth the time you take to build it, so.
It's actually, not only is it not marketable, it's one of those things that you would never build because
Right.
it's too absurd.
Yes,
So
exactly.
10 feet is the outside dimension, inside's 9.
Right.
So,
Just some minor things. Their first floor dimensions on the plans don't agree with the dimensions they used for the floor area calculations. So I don't know why there's a discrepancy. And they should show landscaping and street tree compliance.
so wait, is it the first floor dimensions on the plans don't agree with what?
On the site plan, they have the calculation for the first
Oh.
floor area. So I think maybe they're showing dimensions to the eave, extensions.
okay.
It doesn't make any sense. They don't agree.
Okay. Any other things? No? Okay.
Item number 2, 76-15BZ, 1825 East 22nd Street, Brooklyn.
Okay, just in no particular order. The floor area chart shows 46 buildings in the study area exceed the as-of-right floor area, but I know only 2 buildings on the social block do. The lot coverage shows the 42% lot coverage request is on the high end for the study area, but in fact 8 buildings on the social block are in that range. And then there was a rear yard study provided and sort of an argument, but it's always funny to me. So you provide the rear yard study, and then you should look at the rear yard study and come up with an argument that's related to what you actually see, not just sort of this rote thing about, here's a rear yard study, count how many buildings have shallow rear yards. In this case, the support for a shallower 25-foot 3-inch rear yard is not that, with one exception, houses very distant from the subject have shallower rear yards, but that in this case, the site is a corner lot with a rear yard condition that backs up entirely against other corner lots, all of which are school uses, and one of which includes a schoolyard with a very wide side yard. So it's like, you do the research, then look at what you just did, because the drawing actually talks. It says what the argument is. So for me, that's the argument why you could have a shallower side yard, because it's actually not being shared at all with residential use. It's community facility use, which, arguably could build the entire site. So, I note also that the proposed porch appears to crash into the garage, so that there's actually no access to the rear yard from that side and only 3 feet from the other side. So I believe the porch should be pulled away to allow the 3-foot clearance from the garage. I note that the height of the house is not being increased, and the applicant did show an elevation of the adjacent structure that has a perimeter wall height at least equal to the proposed as required. And I just wanted to know whether this is a flood hazard area, and if yes, the base flood elevation should be shown on the elevations and section. Anybody else? No other comments? Nope, okay.
Item number 3, 9515BZ, 1203 Jerome Avenue, the Bronx.
Okay, I think with this one, we didn't get a last-minute community board recommendation, right? We're still waiting for that.
No, we have it.
We have it? We got this?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
I-
uploaded. You have it.
Okay, I didn't say, okay. And also didn't get DOI.
It's there.
You have it? Okay.
Your call uploaded.
Okay. So,
We have a sign off.
okay.
And fire department sign.
Fire department, I saw this. Okay. Okay. Community board was in favor? Yes? Rory? They were in favor? Okay. So I'd just like them to clarify the days and hours of operation. They actually only had the hours but not the days. The sprinkler note should state that the PCE shall be fully sprinklered and comply with all New York City codes instead of as approved by DOB, because that's an easy way of not installing a sprinkler if it's not actually required by code. I don't think the application made clear that this PCE is to be located in the new second floor to be constructed on an existing one-story building. And it's hard to imagine that this is actually an addition to a one-story, but it's filed as an alteration, so I guess it's sort of an addition to one story. I'd like to know what the adjacent uses on the first floor are, in particular underneath the cardio areas. Also, I couldn't really find the spinning area. I think there was just one little row of bikes along with treadmills. I'd like to know what is a turf and circuit area. Circuit, I could take a guess, but turf, I don't know. The Schedule A, when I look it up on DOB, shows that 11 stores are proposed to be constructed, so that means some of this very rattly type of use is going to be on top of another retail. The non-PCE areas under these active uses should have thicker padding. I'm concerned, actually, the construction is described as metal deck. And so I'm curious about whether that's a type of construction that has a lot of bounce to it, so that when you're doing these kinds of heavy vibration and banging sports, you're actually, the vibration experience might be exaggerated, and whether there needs to be more done in that case. And then there should be a note that's added that says that the sound levels in adjoining spaces or at the building exterior shall not exceed 45 dBA. And I note that on this January 12th, a TCO was issued for this building, so I'd like to know whether the PCEE has begun operations and whether this is a legalization. It doesn't look like that from website search, but don't know whether the website's up to date and whether, so the attorney should find out whether it's an operation. Anything else?
Yeah, this appears to be, it's going to be a two-story building on a larger zoning lot. And I just wanted them to clarify their parking calculations, because they're saying that they're waived because it's going to be under 40, but I'm not sure if it describes all the other uses that are going to be on that zoning lot. And I think this facility is actually going to front Edward Grant Highway, and the old address of the funeral home was like something Jerome Avenue. Are they going to get a new address?
So, and the, okay. Yeah.
I just want to mention, we need to clarify, the applicant's representative, the sound attenuation notes versus the statement of facts. There's some different information in the statement of facts and cover letter, and certain things that need to be revised on the plan notes specifically.
Okay.
And the internal coding, where it says floor finish and ceiling finish schedules. There's some piece of information on STC ratings that is in one place in the narratives, but not on the plan note.
Okay.
So I will work that out.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, the STC notes, I'm not sure what that's based on. Usually, in the old days, I don't know if you still do it, there used to be a book, and then the book told you what the STC rating was for each assembly. Now, I actually don't know what people are doing to establish those assemblies. Okay. Next.
Item number 4, 15815BZ, 125 Park Avenue, Manhattan.
Did we get a community board resolution for this one?
Community board waived. We
Waived.
have it is in SharePoint. It is
It's
uploaded
waived.
today. They waived their
Okay.
review. They chose not to weigh in.
Okay. And did we get DOI and fire department?
DOI signed off, fire department signed off.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to know what the proposed flooring and ceiling materials were to prevent noise and vibration from disturbing adjacent spaces. There wasn't any discussion about that. Anything else? Yeah.
Just want to mention about the landmarks letters we received.
Yes.
Again, you just need to clarify, there are two letters, one from September 8, 2015, one from June 25, 2015. These were landmark staff reviews saying that the proposed signage for Bloom's Fitness would not have any adverse effect on this proposed landmark building.
Right.
Normally, I mean, we usually see a CNE or C of A.
This building has only been calendared, it's not a designated
So that's why.
building.
Okay.
So, you know, the landmarks purview is always a discussion.
So right now, this is sufficient.
Right, okay.
Okay, ready? Item number 5, 20315BZ, 44 Union Square, East Manhattan.
And I need to recuse from this one, unfortunately, because it's a really good project.
And before we forget, this item will be the first up in new hearings. So the representative should be aware that they will not be last on the list, they will actually be first on the list. This application is to convert an existing landmark building, partially in an R8B district and partially in a C6-4 district to commercial use, use groups 6 and 10, waiving sections 2210, 11831, 11842. Commonly known as Tammany Hall, the existing building contains 35,744 square feet on a zoning lot that is 11,975 square feet. The conversion and proposed enlargement will result in a 55,115 square foot building that is 6 floors. 17,274 square feet of commercial floor area will be located in an R8B district. The applicant is requesting the waivers for minimum street wall height because the building is within 100 feet of the Union Square frontage, proposed pre-existing non-conforming street wall at 49 feet 7.5 inches. The applicant argues that the building as is obsolete for its current purported use as a meeting hall and theater space. There isn't enough space in the building to actually really provide for modern physical requirements, and if it was done, it would be financially prohibitive. They have a narrow section of the building that is actually in the R8B portion, and they claim that if they converted to residential in that section, that they would not be able to have a financially viable building, and that the spaces would not comport to sort of what I guess people would expect for residential. The applicant provided the board with 4 as-of-right schemes, including a variety of mixed-use solutions and a lesser variance and their preferred proposal. The applicant has received LPC approval, and as to the B finding, I know that Commissioner Otley Brown had some questions and comments concerning some more detailed explanations of some of the comps and building depreciation and some rent pricing. And I know that Commissioner Montanez expressed some issues concerning parking and trucks. So I give it over to Commissioner Otley Brown. You want to talk about B finding?
Sure. I read the feasibility report, and I have the following questions and comments. As to the scenarios in the narrative, on page 18 versus the pro forma on page 23, there are some inconsistencies in the project cost and the project value that need to be reconciled. There's some error in there. As to the site value, the R8B land sales comparables, comps number 7 and number 8 actually have structures on them now. Did they have them at the sale? And if so, did that account for part of the sales price? For the C6 land comparables, one of the comparables is actually an asking price, and it is also the highest price, so it's skewing the price per square foot upwards, so that should be removed. In terms of the depreciated building, it's an 86-year-old building in fair to average condition, and yet the assumption is that the effective age is 71 years. And the difference between using 71-year effective age versus an 86-year-old effective age is a difference of 10% of remaining building value. So I need to know why they chose 71 years and not the 86 years. The replacement cost for the building, they did provide backup in the original report that was somehow left out of the updated report. And it basically tells all of the different things that are being done to recreate the building in terms of demolition, paving, surfacing, excavation, foundations, and so on. However, this number, the number of $505 a square foot, is still kind of high, and it'd be great if they could explain why it's on the high side. I suspect it probably has something to do with it being reproduction cost new and not replacement, but it would be great to detail that. The as-of-right construction cost differences between the rental scenarios and the condo scenarios show a difference, and the difference in the price per square foot is probably due to the higher-end finishings for the condominium scenarios. However, they really should detail that in the narrative as well. The retail rents, the comparables used for that are all small spaces, and being that there's going to be some use group 10 destination retail here, I need to see some use group 10 comparables so we could see what the larger spaces would lease for and if they have an accurate assumption regarding that. The office rents for the proposed, if the range for the proposed spaces set by the comparables is $63 per square foot to $88 a square foot, why doesn't this proposal qualify at the high end of the square footage? Why are they using the $75 per square foot? It seems to me that this spectacular roof is going to add to the adornment of the space as well as to the light and the airiness of it. And so therefore, I think it would probably qualify to be more at the high end in terms of $88 a square foot. And if not, what does the $88 per square foot space look like, so that I could see the difference and why this doesn't qualify. The apartment condos, the 3-bedroom comparables, are only simplexes, and there are no duplexes, and I just want to know if they have any duplex comparables so that I could see whether or not that duplex apartment was appropriately valued. And finally, the capitalization rates used don't really make much sense to me. There's a 7.0 cap rate used for the lesser variance and a 6.0 used for the proposed, and they're basically similar scenarios except -1 floor for the lesser variance and minus the fancy roof. I don't know if that adds to the riskiness of the project that would justify raising the cap rate. And also, it doesn't make sense when you consider it in relationship to the as-of-right alternatives. The as-of-right alternatives have a 6.5% cap rate, and if anything, the argument here is that the as-of-right alternatives are too risky in terms of a return. And so, if anything, high risk, high cap rate, those should have the highest cap rates. So they need to review that and probably adjust them so that they make sense.
Commissioner Montanez?
Yes, in terms of the C finding, there was no mention of any loading docks required, and I'm not sure if they are, if they could just address that. Are there any loading docks required? And even if they aren't, this is sort of a very busy area with a lot of trucks from the farmers market. There, in the EAS, they show a minimal increase in truck traffic, I think only 2 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon, for an increase of about 38,000 square feet of retail. And I would like to know how they intend to handle the deliveries, because there's And looking at the plans, I don't even see a delivery entrance. And there's no alleyway, and in addition to that, how are they going to handle trash?
Mr. Schindler?
My question was, given this property's proximity to some of the major academic and medical institutions, why was not an as-of-right community facility use considered for this site? And I would just clarification would be helpful. If it was and if it was not viable, I would like that to be clarified.
Did you want them to show you some sort of layout, or did you would be satisfied with simply an explanation?
It
as
could
to
be
what
the
their thinking
physical
was?
space that does not lend itself to be a viable academic or a medical facility given current needs, and maybe the market demands a bigger space. So I think a more of a verbal explanation would be helpful. If I'm not satisfied, then I may ask for more diagrams later on, but I think for now I would like to start the dialogue with more of an explanation of why that was not considered, especially with the strong presence of all the medical and academic institutions right around. So I would like to have an understanding of that. I kind of felt that the rental, the fact that rental was being considered as opposed to condominium, I think given the fewer number of units that are being considered in this building, I thought that was a reasonable in the as-of-right scenario to assume that a rental as opposed to condo, especially if no amenities are not going to be provided, it's going to be difficult to market the condo. So I was okay with the rental as being the alternative as opposed to the condo, which is kind of
Anything else? Okay. Just a reminder, this will be the first item on the new zoning calendar. Great.
This concludes the executive session for January 21st, 2016. Can you turn that mic off, please?